The Quiet Revolution, Why Loving Yourself. First isn't selfish, it's survival. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. And I'm your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Today, I want to share with you the profound insights I gathered from an extraordinary conversation with Seleb Jackson, a visionary who is fundamentally reshaping how we understand love, boundaries, and self prioritization. Celeb Jackson isn't just contributing to the conversation, they are the conversation. Through their work, they've empowered countless Black women to drop the superwoman cape, embrace their softness, and build relationships rooted in respect, reciprocity, and radical self love. Their impact reaches far beyond individual transformation. They are creating a movement that challenges cultural narratives, dismantles harmful expectations, and gives permission to an entire generation of women to choose themselves first. And today I'm here to share those insights with you because what Celeb Jackson taught me has the power to change how you see yourself, your relationships, and your worth. So let's dive in. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud: love is not enough. I know, it sounds like blasphemy. We've been raised on fairy tales and romantic comedies that tell us love conquers all, that if you just love someone hard enough, long enough, deeply enough, everything will work out. The credits will roll, the music will swell, happily ever after. But here's what they don't tell you in those movies: love without boundaries is chaos. Love without standards is exhausting. And love without self knowledge, that's just survival dressed up in affection. Celeb Jackson reminded me of something so simple, yet so revolutionary. You cannot pour into anyone else if your own cup is cracked, leaking, and bone dry. And yet, so many of us, especially high achieving Black women, have been taught that self sacrifice is a virtue, that putting ourselves last is what makes us good mothers, good partners, good friends, good employees. We've been conditioned to believe that softness is weakness, that boundaries are selfish, and that saying no makes us difficult. But here's the real truth: that's a lie designed to keep us depleted. Let me share a story that Celeb Jackson brought to my attention during our conversation. There was a Black woman entrepreneur in Atlanta who spent years building her business, pouring into her community, showing up for everyone. She was the friend who always said yes, the partner who always adjusted, the daughter who always complied. And on the outside, she looked like she had it all together: polished, successful, strong. But on the inside, she was drowning. She realized one day, after yet another exhausting week of saying yes to everyone but herself, that she had never actually asked herself what she needed. She had never explored her own boundaries. She had never said, "Wait, what do I want?" Because she was too busy being what everyone else needed her to be. Her entire identity had become a performance. And the applause was deafening, but it was also hollow. So she started small. She started journaling. She started therapy. And she started practicing something that felt almost revolutionary: saying no, not with anger, not with guilt, but with clarity. She set boundaries around her time, her energy, her emotional availability. And you know what happened? Her self esteem soared, her relationships deepened, her business thrived because she was no longer running on fumes. She was operating from overflow. And here's the kicker: she launched a mentorship program specifically for other Black women entrepreneurs, teaching them the very thing she had to learn the hard way: that self advocacy and boundary setting are not luxuries, they are necessities. This is what Celeb Jackson calls the foundation of healthy relationships, self love and self knowledge. You have to know who you are, what you value, and what you will and will not tolerate before you can invite anyone else into your life in a meaningful way. Because if you don't know your own boundaries, how can you expect anyone else to respect them? Now, let's talk about love versus standards, because this is where it gets messy. We've been told that unconditional love is the gold standard. And in some contexts, sure, it's beautiful. But in romantic relationships, in friendships, in professional dynamics, unconditional love without boundaries is just unconditional tolerance. And tolerance of disrespect, dishonesty, or disregard is not love, it's self abandonment. Celeb Jackson shared another story during our conversation that really drove this home. There was a Black couple in Chicago who were engaged, deeply in love, planning their future. But one partner believed that unconditional love meant accepting any behavior, even when it was hurtful, even when it crossed the line. The other partner was exhausted, feeling disrespected, but afraid to speak up because they didn't want to seem unloving. They had grown up watching their own families prioritize love over self respect. They had witnessed cycles of resentment, of quiet suffering, of relationships held together by obligation rather than mutual respect. And they were terrified of repeating those patterns, but they didn't know how to break them. So they went to couples counseling. And in that space, they learned something critical. Loving someone does not mean accepting unhealthy behavior. You can love someone and still have standards. You can love someone and still say, this is not acceptable to me. You can love someone and still choose to walk away if those standards are not met. And here's what happened: they either redefined their relationship with clear mutual standards, or in some instances, they ended it amicably, recognizing that love alone was not enough. Because love without respect is just attachment, and attachment without reciprocity is just pain. They became advocates in their community, hosting workshops on boundaries and standards, sparking conversations about the difference between unconditional love and unconditional tolerance. And that distinction, that's everything. Because here's the thing: you are allowed to have standards. You are allowed to say, I will not accept being spoken to that way. You are allowed to say, I need time for myself. You're allowed to say, this relationship is not serving me anymore. And none of that makes you difficult, demanding, or unloving. It makes you self aware, it makes you whole. Now, let's bring this into the everyday, because boundaries are not just for romantic relationships, they're for friendships, for family, for work, for every single space you occupy. Celeb Jackson told me about a Black professional in New York who was climbing the corporate ladder, crushing her goals, making it happen. But she was also saying yes to every request, every favor, every after hours email. She was the friend who always showed up, even when she was exhausted. She was the partner who always adjusted, even when her own needs were screaming for attention. Early in her career, she had believed that saying yes to everything was the only way to succeed and be loved. That if she just worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, gave enough, she would finally be valued, finally be seen, finally be enough. And one day, she hit a wall. Not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. She realized that her boundaries were being ignored because she had never communicated them. She had never said, I need time for myself. She had never said, I can't take on another project right now. She had never said, I love you, but I need space. So she started identifying her boundaries through self reflection. She started communicating them assertively, without apology. She requested time for herself. She limited after hours work. She was clear about her expectations in relationships. And the result? Less stress, deeper connections, greater satisfaction at work and in her personal life. She now mentors young Black professionals on the importance of setting boundaries and prioritizing self care because she knows firsthand that saying yes to everything is not the path to success, it's the path to burnout. And this is what Caleb Jackson wants us to understand. Boundaries are not barriers. They are not walls that keep people out. They are guidelines that protect your well being and signal to others how you expect to be treated. They are the difference between being loved and being used. They are the difference between thriving and surviving. So here's the question Celeb Jackson wants you to sit with. How are you learning to be soft in a world that taught you survival? Because softness is not weakness. Softness is not passivity. Softness is the radical act of choosing yourself, of protecting your peace, of saying, I am worthy of rest, of joy, of love that does not deplete me. And here's the truth: you cannot be soft if you are constantly overextending yourself. You cannot be soft if you are constantly people pleasing. You cannot be soft if you are constantly ignoring your own needs in favor of everyone else's. Softness requires boundaries. Softness requires self love. Softness requires the courage to say, I am enough, just as I am, and I will not shrink myself to make others comfortable. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when you meant no? How many times have you adjusted your schedule, your plans, your peace to accommodate someone else's comfort? How many times have you swallowed your words, your feelings, your truth because you didn't want to be perceived as difficult? And what has that cost you? It's cost you sleep. It's cost you joy. It's cost you peace. It's cost you the very essence of who you are. Celeb Jackson's work is a clarion call to stop the madness, to stop the cycle of self abandonment, to stop the performance of strength when what you really need is rest. Because here's what I've learned: strength is not about how much you can carry, strength is about knowing when to put it down. Strength is not about how much you can endure, strength is about knowing when to say enough. Strength is not about how much you can give. Strength is about knowing when to receive. And that is the soft girl era. That is the revolution. That is the reclamation of self. So here's your challenge straight from Celeb Jackson. Take 15 minutes this week to reflect on your personal boundaries and standards. Write down 3 non-negotiables for your relationships, friendships, romantic or professional, and then practice communicating one of them clearly to someone in your life. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be comfortable, but it has to be honest. Because the truth is, loving yourself first is not selfish. It is essential. It is the foundation of every healthy relationship you will ever have. It is the key to your soft girl era. And Celeb Jackson is living proof that when you prioritize self love, when you establish clear boundaries, when you choose partners and friends who respect your standards, your life transforms, your relationships deepen, your peace expands, your joy becomes non negotiable. But here's the thing: this isn't just about you, this is about the ripple effect. When you choose yourself, you give permission to others to do the same. When you set boundaries, you model what respect looks like. When you embrace softness, you challenge the narrative that Black women must always be strong, always be giving, always be sacrificing. You become the disruption, you become the revolution, you become the proof that there is another way. So I'm asking you today, right now, to make a choice. Choose yourself, choose your peace, choose your softness. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when things slow down, now. Because the world needs you whole, not depleted. The world needs you rested, not exhausted. The world needs you soft, not hardened by survival. And the only way to get there is to love yourself first, to set boundaries without apology, to demand standards without guilt, to embrace softness without shame. This is your permission slip. This is your invitation. This is your moment. Drop the cape. Release the role of superwoman. Embrace your softness. Protect your peace. And remember, love alone is not enough. But love with boundaries, love with standards, love with self knowledge, that's everything. So go, reflect, write, speak, and step into your soft girl era. Not because it's trendy, but because you deserve it, because you are worthy, because you are enough. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing yourself. And thank you, Celeb Jackson, for reminding us that we are worthy of love that does not cost us our peace. Now go be soft, go be boundaried, go be unapologetically you.